Nice. Okay, I'm feeling good about this. This is really going to be good. Okay, I feel I have such confidence. I'm going to close up my Slack. I'm going to close that up, and if they need something, my team will get with me on Zoom. So I am very very excited about today's episode. I've got a great guest here from across the pond. I'm excited about this because I've got Miss Ruella Crouch. She is a recruitment expert. She actually has her own live show. And so I am very happy to have you. Thank you for staying up a little later for me tonight. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's a real pleasure, Rollis. Thank you so much for inviting me. And obviously, we met through Clubhouse. So just lovely to be here. Thank you.
Exactly. So one of the things that I was doing a meeting this morning, and one of the things that she was asking and challenging me to do is talk about Mondays. What do I love about Mondays? So one of the things I forgot about is the fact that we do a show on Mondays. I look forward to this show, and I've been looking forward to this show with you today, Ruella. So I've got lots of questions for you about what it's like to recruit in the
Okay.
UK. And then I'm open to any questions you have about what it's like to recruit here in the US. I think we'll be able to give some actionable things for those who are either recruiters or those maybe companies who are looking for recruiters, or perhaps those who are looking for a job. I think there's some of the things we share will help in any one of those areas. And so those who are just signing in, let me know what city, state, country you're signing in from. Love to hear from you. What questions do you have for either of us? I am very, very excited to see and see what you have to say. And I also want to ask you this one question. Ruella, I want you to answer this question. I want everyone in the comments to answer this question before we get into the meat of our discussion. The favorite place to build a dream home, if you could, your favorite place to build a dream home, money's no object. Where would you do it?
Crumbs. That's a difficult answer. I've traveled to so many places, but I would say probably somewhere in Australia because I visited Australia many, many times. And I think it would have to be somewhere in Australia.
Australia. Okay. What's your favorite part of Australia?
Well, I have a sister-in-law who lives in a place called Manly, which is fairly near Sydney. And
Okay.
it's a really beautiful part of Australia. So, yeah, that would probably be my first choice.
Excellent. Okay. So, Joanne, if you could find any spots, any pictures of Joanne Lee, feel free and pop one of those in the comments.
Manly.
Manly. How do you spell that?
Manley.
Okay. Manly. Manley.
Yes.
See, I'm from Texas, so sometimes we'll say manly for something like that. But I get it. I get it. Excellent.
Got to be manly to be in Manly.
Exactly. So Joanne's already piping in with her comments. Thank you. We've got Robert. Robert, good to see you, Robert. He's here. And we even have Dana Montilia. Thank you. And actually, Robert says the Maldives. His favorite spot is the Maldives. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful place. Good choice.
I think that right now, I think my top spot, I would love to be in one of those nice, like connected with a resort at Jamaica, and one of those places right on the beach, just right above, kind of overlooking the beach. That would be my favorite thing. Okay, well, let me ask you this. First of all, Ruella, what even got you in recruitment? What got you even interested in the field? Because most people don't like go to school to become a recruiter, right? I know I didn't. And so somehow we find ourselves in recruitment. So what's your story? How did you get into recruitment?
Well, I mean, we have an education system in the UK where after your A-levels, what we call A-levels, we go on to study for a degree. And it was whilst I was considering whether to take a year out after my degree, many years ago. I've been in recruitment since I was 19 and I'm now 53. So you can work out the maths on that one. And I literally did just fall into it. I was deciding whether to take up my place at university or whether to go and get a job. And at the time, it was in the 90s. We were in, actually probably the late 80s, actually. We had a recession here in the UK. And I just made this decision to work for a newspaper doing telephone sales. And after doing that for 6 months, which was the most horrendous and awful job I think I've ever done in my life, I then sort of fell into recruitment, as I think most people do. I don't know many people who really choose it as a career who are in my age group, maybe a little more so now. But at the time, it was just something I completely fell into. And as you can see, I have done it ever since. So I obviously really love what I do.
I love it. And apparently it loves you. What's the part that you love about it the most? Like what jazzes you about recruitment in general?
Gosh, I can easily answer that one. It's
Okay.
making a difference to someone's life. I think there's no
Yes.
greater satisfaction than knowing that something you've done has made a massive difference to people's lives. And I'm sure you've done it as well, where you see people who are, well, you have literally, you've changed their life for the better if you've
Yes.
done a great job.
Ah, I love that. I love that. Let me just check in with the audience and see what they have to say. Ah, yeah, they liked it. They liked what you said. So
We love
apparently,
your audience.
yeah, apparently that resonates with our audience. Appreciate that. So one of the things I thought was interesting, we talked briefly before, which I just glancing, I wouldn't know this, but you have a multicultural background. I love this. Tell me about your multicultural background.
I do. So my mother is Ghanaian, but she's actually mixed race herself. So she's half Ghanaian, half Lebanese. So her father's white, her mother is black, and so therefore I am quarter Ghanaian, quarter Lebanese, and half English.
Ah, I love that. Okay,
And I'm very proud, very very proud of my heritage.
that's awesome. Okay, so Ghana, Lebanon, and English. Did I get all three of them?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you
So
did.
awesome. Okay, so how do you think that has helped you? Having that multicultural background, how do you think that has actually helped you in recruitment? I'm curious.
Well, I was on a podcast recently and someone asked me who was my greatest influence in my life. And they thought that I was going to come up with Simon Sinek or any other great influencer out there. And for me, it's absolutely my mother because African women are very, very wise. It's family first. And for me, despite everything I'm doing with my work, my family absolutely comes first. And I think it's just a sort of very practical, pragmatic, looking after your own, that loyalty, that dependability that you have from somebody who's, she looks after my children, she's my greatest support. When I have challenging things happening in my life, she is the person that, I feel privileged to have her as my mother. So, as you can tell, I hold her in very, very high esteem. And I think in England, we don't necessarily have perhaps that same family first that you have when you come from, backgrounds such as my own.
Ah, that's a good point. So how do you think that helps you specifically within recruitment? Like is it more when you're speaking with a candidate, when you're speaking with a client, your processes? How do you think it helps you in that way? Your upbringing and your support from
Um,
your mother.
well, I think having that support, we all know recruitment's a difficult job. Anyone who's any work is hard, but for me, I think recruitment it's a very challenging role, and having someone behind you to support you 100% all of the time. Um, what greater thing can you have in your life? We are a product of our tribe, so to speak. And I'm surrounded by amazing women. I'm surrounded by an amazing family. And I think, sorry, I don't know if I've answered your question, but what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say is that, yeah, she has given me courage, resolute. She's made me competitive. All of
yeah.
my best qualities, stubborn, I get from my mother.
I love it. I love it. So we can put this. We can do this actually for your mother here. So we'll give her a round of applause as well. So this is for your mother. You can see that later.
I love that.
So map out for me from start to finish a recruitment job. What does that look like? Walk me through it. So let's say a client calls you and like we need X, or is it mostly candidates you work with, or do you work more on the client side?
Well, we're really fortunate that we work in a very candidate driven market. So roles come in. I mean, I think last week alone, we took 25 new roles last week. So
Wow.
we've been around for 22 years this year as a business, Ruella James. We have won 3 awards for excellence. We've won more awards than any other recruitment to recruitment company in the UK. We have, a good reputation. And so
Mm-hmm.
for us, we're very lucky that roles come to us every single day. So
Okay.
for us, it's very much about finding the candidate. So if you think, what a 360 recruiter does, we do every element of that role from the sales to doing the candidate generation. So for us, most of our time is spent on delivery. So trying to find superb candidates for our clients. And we're we're really particular about who we work with, both from a client and candidate perspective. I think you have to be when you're charging the sorts of fees that we charge in recruitment. Clients want that something extra. That's what they're paying for at the end of the day. So the majority of our role is the majority of our time is spent very much on that delivery sourcing piece.
Do you feel that as far as the way your process is right now, do you typically wait for the role to come in and then run your search, or are you constantly searching for the same type of individuals and then you're presenting that to your clients as possibilities for whatever positions they have? Which one do you focus
I think it's
more
a combination. It's a combination of both. We've placed from sort of entry level candidates right up to ADs, managing directors of recruitment businesses. So just to explain to your audience, we are in the recruitment to recruitment market. We place recruiters. We're like the doctor's doctor, if you like. And so for us, we are always evolving our talent pool on a daily basis through various methods. You and I have spoken about the sort of personal branding journey that we've been on. So LinkedIn plays a huge part in that. We have a database of candidates that we're always sourcing from. But really, it's. I think you have to, if you want to really be the expert in your market, you have to be cultivating that relationship and nurturing that relationship all the time. But on the converse side, sometimes we do have to run retained projects, and we're trying to work more on a retained basis now, rather than being a contingent recruiter where it's very much a bit hit and miss sometimes.
Yeah. So I want us to make sure we explain all of our different pieces of jargon, because we can talk, you and I can talk shop. I know everything you're saying, but maybe someone who's not as familiar, when you use the word sourcing, let's explain that to our audience. What is sourcing?
Well, in simple terms, it's actually going out to find those candidates. So that could be through an advertisement. That's commonly how lots of people in the past have found roles for themselves. It could be that someone approaches you through LinkedIn or any other platform that's out there. Or it could be that you've registered with a recruitment agency previously when looking for work. You're still on their database, and then they will approach you or come and approach you about an opportunity that you may not even be looking for a role. But I'm sure everybody in every walk of life has had those calls from a recruiter approach them about a role, even when they were not looking for a job.
Yeah. So, okay, now here's the interesting point here, because we do a lot of the same things you're mentioning now in terms of sourcing. But I understand in the UK and in Europe, there's some restrictive laws when it comes to just having a database and just calling people out of the blue. Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that's affected recruiting? What do you do in that case?
Good old GDPR, as we call it. Yes. I mean, I think when it first came into the UK and across Europe, you don't have it in America.
No, it's quite a bit different. Wow. Now they have to disclose certain things. Like, for instance, if you go to a website, you have to accept the cookies that you are being tracked, or you can say no, I don't accept. You have to do that. But the level of detail and restrictions you guys have with the Europe GDPR is like way beyond what we're doing here. Okay.
So basically, when it first came out, which was in 2018, May 2018, what we had to do was go through. Well, we had 35,000 records on our database, and the first thing we had to do was reduce that down. Then we had to decide on a time frame that we felt it was. We went on something called legitimate interest. So if we felt that legitimately we should keep that person's details on our database, then we had to contact all of those people that we decided to keep on our database for a set period of time, and make sure that they were still happy for us to have their data on our database. Now, the importance of it for us is that we have sometimes people come back to us who have lied or changed their CV or misled, are now trying to mislead clients as to perhaps what they've done in the past. So for us as a recruiter, it was important that we kept as many of those records as we possibly could to protect our clients at the end of the day, and stop them being in a situation that we're taking on a rogue candidate that maybe had chopped 2 or 3 roles.
Right.
Obviously, there's sometimes good reason for it, but maybe not always necessarily so. So we have to, on a yearly basis, make sure that we have permission from the candidates that we keep on our database, every single time we approach a candidate, there is something on the end of our email, which is attached to our privacy policy, and they can ask at any time to be removed from our database. Thankfully, it hasn't happened often, but where there are very heavy penalties in the UK, so if somebody does think that you are holding their records without their consent, then you can be fined. I think it's up to 10% of your turnover. It's quite a high. It's either 5 or 10%. So we try as much as possible, as much as we possibly can. None of these things are completely fail-safe.
Yes.
To make sure that the data, that we have the permission of the individuals involved.
So how do you feel about that? Because I'm actually, as you're explaining it, I'm kind of liking it. But how do you feel about it? You have to live in it. What is it like to be under those restrictions?
I think initially it was quite daunting, but I think actually the way I saw it, we had 35,000 records before we started. We're now currently at 9,000 records because we're about to move to a new CRM database. So once again, it's, between 0 and X records, it's going to cost you this much to transfer the records. So we're now down to 9,000 records. And I think actually it's a really good way of making sure you're keeping in touch with people, that the data, that the information is accurate. It's a very good way of getting in contact with people, a good reason to get in contact with them. And obviously it's making sure that the data that you have, and we're all in any walk of life, any business, only as good as the data that we have in our database. So it's probably prompted us to keep it more up to date, a good reason for us to call people, and a good way of remaining compliant. So now it doesn't feel like it did in 2018 when it was like, oh my goodness, this seems like a lot of work.
I mean, it just sounds like a great opportunity to have that touch point to make sure your data is, is good. I can tell you there's one list. Every now and then they'll send me an email and I just get irritated because I have no way of updating and let them know I don't want to be getting this anymore. And it was like, they made it so hard to just unsubscribe myself. I have to go log into the account, which I don't remember the information for, how to log into the thing, and take my time and go in there and somehow unsubscribe from everything. You have to check all these boxes. But
really,
what you guys did was amazing. Yeah, because I mean, this was like something I filled out like over a decade ago. Like we're talking like 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I'm like, I'm not, this is not even me. This is not even, it's not even the same Rollis really. Cause what I was looking for actually it was more than that, more like 16 years ago before I even started my business. I mean, what I was looking for then and what I would be interested in now is first of all, I'm not looking for a job. Second of all, the stuff they're sending me is not even remotely close to what I would be interested in. So I don't know, I was just thinking about out of those 35,000, you will it down to 9,000. I think is incredible because that now you've got 9,000 more accurate pieces of data, people who are truly interested in being aligned with your company. I think that's great. Okay, we got some comments coming in. Gwen. Hi, Gwen. She says, congratulations, Ruella. Sounds like the work that you do is first class and highly recognized by the community. And she gave you a hand clap. So that means I need to give you a hand clap too. So let me do that for you because you're apparently doing great work there. So thank you for that. She says, retain search versus contingent. Definitely pros and cons. Both require trust and a huddle. Yes. Thanks for what you do. Okay. Before we get into that, I want to talk about that and then we can kind of explain to our audience what the differences are between those two as a recruiter, because we do that here in the US too. But I have a question for you. I actually like hearing different accents and I love your accent, but I'm curious, and I love hearing, I could listen to you all day. But I'm curious, what's your favorite foreign accent to listen to? And I want those in the comments to answer too.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say it's the French accent or Italian, actually, because it sounds very sexy and it's the language of love. So my father, he's very interesting. He won a recording contract with RCA Records years and years ago, and he moved over to Italy. So if I had to choose, I probably love the Italian accent.
Yes, I like the Italian accent also, but
very romantic.
J'aime l'accent français aussi. Je parle un peu le français. I like French accent too. Yeah, those are good. Okay, in the comments, what's your favorite? What's your favorite accent to listen to? All right. So I want to get into this contingent and retained. I was in contingent for quite a few years, many years before I started retained. So you started out with
Yes.
contingent first, and then you're transitioning to retain, correct?
We're transitioning slowly. I mean, I
Okay.
think it's clients. Shall I explain what it is first? Do you want
Yes.
me to
Please
quickly
explain the
explain that?
difference between
Okay, so
contingent search and retain search.
okay. So when we're doing a contingent search, or basically what we're doing is again, I think your audience will probably be quite familiar with this. It's when you see an advertisement, whether it be on a social media platform or whether if people still read newspapers. When I was back in recruitment in the day, that was the only way that you could really find out what was
Right.
roles that were being advertised or on someone's website, and then you will apply for that role and. On a daily basis, for example, if we're recruiting for trainees, we probably have over 100 CVs coming into our inbox for someone who somewhere on some platform has seen us advertising a role. And as and when we find a suitable person for our client, we will send their CV over. So it's quite haphazard, it's quite sporadic, and it can take some time to find that right candidate. The real downside from a recruiter's point of view is if you can put in a lot of work and not get a fee at the end of it.
Exactly.
So the reason why we're looking at more retained search is a client pays you an upfront fee. You then, so that you, let's say you charge 30%, you might get 10% of that fee prior to starting the assignment. You'll then go away and put a long list and then a short list of candidates together, and then you'll get another part of that fee. And then when you have concluded and found the candidate, the right candidate the client's looking for, you'll get the final part of the fee. What's fantastic about that is both sides are more committed. You're going to get a fee at the end of it as long as you deliver with the correct candidate.
Yes.
And although there is pressure because you've got a retainer, there's also less pressure because at the end of it you will get a fee for all the hard work that you've put into it.
Amen.
As long as you can find the candidate. So
yes.
We are, I say, slowly transitioning over to that. For a start, you can't suddenly be a contingent recruiter one day and a retained search. There's a different set of skills there.
Yeah.
And we are still learning those skills, learning to refine those skills, because right now the recruitment sector is so busy that people are completely being bombarded by recruiters on a daily basis.
That's great. I love it. So, and that's similar here. That's basically the way it works here. Now we've got another third and fourth alternative here. We have what's called RPO, recruitment process outsourcing, that's used quite a bit, where they're basically just saying, okay, Ruella, we want your team to just manage that whole process. We want you to go ahead and we'll give you a login to our system. You can recruit on our behalf, and we're going to pay you per requisition that you work on. We have that. And then we have another one that our company does, and I think we're actually pioneers in this area. It's subscription-based recruiting, where
I love the sound of that. How does that work for you?
So basically, the client subscribes to our service, and our service involves a number of recruitment-related services, whether it's building out recruitment advertising campaigns, building out the recruitment videos, the marketing, and all that kind of stuff. Trying to find what are the best stories based on the marketplace, because we'll do some research to see what are other organizations offering in that area to make them more competitive. What should their offer look like? If they need some help on the screening side, we can help a little bit with the screening before the HR team sends it over to the hiring manager. In some cases, if they have limited resources, if they're very small, they may actually have us send it straight to the hiring manager and copy in HR. But it's really kind of based on what they need in that in that situation.
So it can be quite bespoke to them. You're sort of building a model around what their business needs. I love that idea.
Yeah. And so they end up paying a monthly fee versus per placement, which can save them, if they're efficient, it can save them anywhere from around 60, well, I would say more like 40% if they're not very efficient, to as high as maybe 70% off of what we used to charge.
That's a huge saving, Rollis. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, but it only works too that they're hiring a lot, right? So if they only need like one or two people of a certain role, then it's not worth it. But if they need like a lot of folks, and in fact, we had one not too long ago that wanted us, we're working on a search at the moment that we did on a retained basis because they only needed one person. It's a high level executive position, but it's just one person. So we did it off a retained search. But in most cases with like, RNs where they always need RNs all the time, or they always need physicians or providers, we can build a platform around that need and just evergreen recruit for them throughout the year. And they love it. It saves them tons of money.
And I think anywhere where you are working in a real partnership with your client, when you've got this really deep relationships, it's bespoke to them. You're giving probably, I'm sure, knowing you, lots of value add as well that they don't even realize, but you're giving a lot extra too.
Yes.
I think I love that model. I think it's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah. There's one client, I remember they were asking us, hey, so, what's the results? And we show them the results, which by the way, saves them over a contingency contract. But as a side point, like what you just mentioned, we created like over 200 videos for them over the years that we were working with them, and built out built out some social media channels that have a lot of those prior posts in them, because we built it with their information, their logo, their branding, and all that. So they had not only did they get the placements, they also got the other stuff, the videos and all that stuff that they didn't have to produce. We'd produce all that for them. But I love this idea of moving from contingency to retain, because this is one of the things we found out, and maybe you face this, and maybe some of your recruiters are watching this. If you're in the business, maybe you face the same thing. We found that back then when we did it that way, we were landing about 1 out of every 4 orders. Sometimes it was 1 out of every 6, depending on what the case was. So if you only land one of them, right, out of, let's say 4, to give an example, and let's say your recruitment fee is $20,000, it sounds like a lot of money. But if you're only getting paid once every 4 or 5 times that you work on the order, I ran the numbers, like that's only like $4,000 or $5,000 per placement. And then when I looked at our cost was at least that to work on those placements. So I much prefer the idea of getting paid on every search that I work on versus not knowing which ones are going to pay me. I don't know. Is that similar to what you guys faced over there?
Yeah, I think, I belong to a group in the UK called Elite Leaders, and we've had this conversation many, many times. Why would you only want to get paid for 25% of the work that you are given? And there are not many sectors or many other roles where you're only paid on 25% of the work that you do. So it's a very, very big push in the UK towards this more retained model at the moment. And it's, sometimes it's hard if you've given a good service and you've worked a contingent model. Sometimes it's very hard to transition those clients over to that retained piece. And you've got to have, as I'm sure you have, I don't know enough about your business to comment, but we have a huge infrastructure supporting that, as I'm sure you do.
Yes.
And anyone who thinks recruitment is easy in the UK or in the US, believe me, it's a tough job. It's a very tough job.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. So, and Gwen corrected. I said huddle. She actually meant hustle. So it does. Yes, she's right. It does require.
I love a hustle.
Trust and hustle. I noticed you use a term earlier. You said bespoke to your clients. Can you clarify that a little more? Because that's a term I don't really hear here in the US.
Okay.
Explain to me what that means.
So bespoke is where you are putting together an offering that's very specific to that client. So you are bespoking that service or making that service unique to that client based on what they're looking for.
I like it. I kind of sense that, but I wanted to make sure. And so I guess the word I would use in that case would be customized.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like the bespoke. That's cool. See, this is one of these things I learned here from talking to you. Okay, I have another question for you. And I want the folks in the comments to answer this too, please. What is something you forgot once that you will more than likely never forget again?
Wow, what a fantastic question. Oh, something I forgot once that, gosh, recruiters have really, really good memories.
That's true. That's a good point. That's really true.
And everyone in my team says I have the best memory. I can't think of anything. Oh, I know. Okay. It's not something I forgot. It's something I forgot to check.
Okay.
So I once collected my husband's car. He had a very lovely, if anyone's familiar with cars, he had a I'm trying to think of the exact car it was. It was a BMW 5 Series.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I had one of those.
With all the bells and whistles. This car cost a huge amount of money. And I once had to collect, he was in the States on business, and I once had to collect this car and from the garage. And as I jumped into the car, I forgot to check whether the handbrake and the gear, what gear the gear was in. And as I was pushing very madly, as I was pushing on the automatic seat into my seated position, I started the ignition, and the car shot straight into a demonstration car, and I couldn't actually reach the pedals to stop the car because not only was it in gear, they'd also taken the handbrake off.
Oh my
And
goodness.
Unfortunately, I didn't get any compensation from the garage. And then I had to ring my husband in America on a different time zone and explain, because his car, by this time, if you'd seen the car, it looked like it had been in a serious road accident. And I had just collected it from being in an accident that was not the fault of my husband's. And it was the worst sight I've ever seen. And I had to ring him up, and he said, "Oh, Ruella, what part of the car have you damaged?" And I said, "Well, it's the front of the car. The bonnet is, you've never seen anything like it." He went, "Oh, don't worry." He said, "I needed a new bonnet anyway." But this was my husband's most prized possession after our children. So is that a good story?
That's a good story. And you know what? What was really cool is how he responded to it. How did you feel when he responded that way?
I thought he was going to go absolutely crazy, but he was very good. I have to admit, he was very, very good.
Okay, we're going to give this to your husband for being that way. That was good when he did that. We're going to give him a applause. That was good. That was a good response. That was good on his part. He scored some points when he did that, huh? When he kind of let you off the hook.
He's now my ex-husband, so.
Oh, okay. Oops.
It's fine. Don't worry.
Well, we all have our moments, right?
Absolutely.
Even the squirrel gets a nut every now and then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Gwen says she forgot her marriage anniversary once. Oh, wow. Yeah. And
it depends on how much you celebrate those things. It's a bit like, do you have Valentine's Day in America?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody should, I guess.
Lots of people forget that.
Joanne says take and keep photographs with loved ones. Now, Gwen says she loved it when you use the term bonnet. She loves that.
Bonnet. What do you call it?
Well, I guess the front, the hood.
Okay.
Yeah,
we call it a bonnet. Yes, it's like a hat. That's also the name for a hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of, now. Whenever I say certain words, has there been any words that I've used so far that's like, okay, it's kind of different or whatever, or is it pretty much everything?
Not yet. I do remember I was in the States a few years ago. I went to a supermarket, and the lady, she loved my accent too, and she said, "Well, could you say that again?" And I had to ask for a piece of ham 3 times. So could you just say it one more time? Please, can I have a piece of ham? So.
Yeah. No, that doesn't get annoying for you, does it? Like when folks in America just really dote over your accent.
No, I think I appreciate.
Okay.
It's lovely to have an accent that people love, because I think there are lots of accents that people don't love, or that we have call centers now, don't we, all over the world, and sometimes it's quite hard to understand what people are saying. So if people can understand what I'm saying, apart from the odd word that maybe we have a slightly different meaning, like pants and pants, but what we call pants and what you call pants, I think that's quite amusing.
Okay, so I know what we call pants. What do you call pants?
Well, your underwear.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
But then you know now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, how prevalent in the UK, because we pretty much every organization has what we call an ATS, or an applicant tracking system, that we use. How common is that amongst organizations as well as recruiting companies? Do they typically all use applicant tracking systems? And if so, do they use one that they buy, or do they develop it on their own?
I think the majority of firms, well, in the recruitment sector, we all buy ATSs. We call them CRMs. But yes, we I don't know many recruiters who don't have one, and I don't know many end users who don't have one either. And I think because we have to, I don't know how you do this in the States, but with us, it's the first person who presents the CV of the candidate who earns the introduction.
Yes.
So if you don't have a really good ATS in place, then there's going to be huge arguments over who's represented that candidate, who deserves the fee. So over in the UK, lots and lots. Yeah, I don't know many firms that don't have one.
It's interesting to use the term CRM because we use that term too, but typically CRM, which stands for Customer Relationship Manager for those who are watching, we typically use that from a sales standpoint to create sales. But for recruiting, we typically just use the recruitment of the applicant tracking systems for that. So yeah, it's kind of cool hearing the different differences. I want to go back to something you said earlier about sourcing, because you talked about the different ways that your recruiting organization. I'm assuming other organizations also get their candidates. I think this will help those who are watching who may be looking for a job, because you mentioned how you receive candidates who, first of all, obviously they answer your ads you have out there, but you also mentioned those who may have reached out to one of your recruiters in the past or shown interest in the past. Let's talk about that for a moment. Give us some good scenarios where it would be good for a job seeker who is in your field. Let's say they're a recruiter. What's the best way to be engaged with your organization or with your clients, and to be visible and looked at favorably?
Gosh, that's really interesting. I think it's an interesting question, because it's something that I don't really think about too much, because we don't all have the privilege of, and again, I don't know your education system, but in the UK we have state schools, we have private schools, so there's a paid for schools that the government aren't paying for. So you can't expect that everybody is going to be able to, who's had that education, to perhaps always send a covering letter, or perhaps have the privilege of someone checking over their CV for them. So, and in my line of work, attitude is normally more important, and personality is sometimes more important than necessarily the qualifications that you have on a CV. And I would say I have people in my team who are, everything has to be perfect. I have people in my team who are maybe overly generous towards a candidate, and I sort of sit somewhere in between. So I think, I like it when people call us and actually want to sell themselves over the phone and highlight the fact that they've sent their CV to us. I think if someone does bother to put what we call a covering letter with their CV, just explaining what they're looking for, I think that's always useful. Sometimes people send photographs. I'm not too bothered about that. It's neither here nor there. I think actually more importantly than what they send to us is whether they are on some sort of social platform promoting themselves. So most of our clients now, as you and I know, will go straight to your LinkedIn profile, and they will look at your LinkedIn profile. And so, as a woman in my 50s who 9 months ago I was not really using LinkedIn at all, so now we have over 600,000 views a month, just me personally. That doesn't include everyone in my business. I think the most important thing we can do, and there is no excuse for a younger person entering the job market, is to have some sort of visibility on a social media platform.
Yes.
I would always suggest it be LinkedIn. And if it's not LinkedIn and you're somewhere else, that's fine, as long as there are no dodgy photos of you, or perhaps you've written something that is unsavory or doesn't reflect well on you.
Yes.
So I'm always saying to my children, and as I'm checking their Instagram feed, I'll say, this is going to be there for life.
Yes.
So, just be really careful that picture that you put up on yourself, not wearing very much, that could go against you in the future. So for me, as you know, I'm a massive advocate of LinkedIn. To me, that is more important, really, to me, than necessarily what is on your CV.
Yes, interesting. A lot of the things you mentioned have to do, I think, with personal branding. how they're branding themselves. And it's not important just for employers or for, in your case, recruiters. It's also important for your applicants, your candidates, to have a good, just a good view, so if you said it, and it's so true, the client will go straight to it. They'll say, I wonder if they have a profile. I wonder if it's public. Let me take a look at it. And depending on what's there, could influence their thinking, good, bad, or indifferent. You can't control that. So if it's public, just know that that's going to happen. So if that's something you want your employer to see, no problem. But if you don't want them to see that, you shouldn't post it.
I mean, I'm now more and more, and I don't know whether you're doing this because you're so prolific on LinkedIn now. We are giving so much more advice to our candidates now about making sure that these profiles are not only fabulous if you're looking for a role, but also, as you know, it's a very, very good way of developing your business. And there are lots of roles out there, not just recruitment, where you are a salesperson developing new business. And that's been kind of crucial for us in terms of getting through this pandemic, has been that visibility on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely. Now, earlier you did those for those who are watching. I know you use the term CV, and I'm in the medical healthcare side where that term is used quite a bit. In most of the other positions, we use the term resume. So those who are watching, when she says CV, she's talking about resume. And then one of the things you said too, some dodgy photographs. And I'm assuming when I hear dodgy, that makes you think maybe it's a risque kind of photograph. It's something you probably wouldn't want them to see. Maybe, So, okay, I get that right?
These selfies and your children are not thinking quite what the positioning is or what's in the background. So,
yes. That's so true. And, even today we have these celebrities who sometimes they'll post something and immediately they want to take it back. And they do take it back. But the problem is there's people who take screenshots of that. Yeah. So even though they took it back, it still can live on forever on the internet. So I think it's something that those applicants that we're talking about, they can actually do the same thing. They need to do the same thing, which is to protect their own personal brand as if they were a celebrity, really. I mean, make sure that you don't have stuff on your profile that you don't want to have, right?
Yeah.
I love this. This was very useful. And for this, I just want to see what our audience thinks. Yep, they like it. Very good. So, okay, I have another question for you before we get back into recruiting again. Would you rather, if you had to, suffer from unpredictable fainting spells or from bouts of shouting, if you had to choose?
Crumbs. I'd probably say bouts of shouting, because if I had an unpredictable did you say fainting?
Yes. Unpredictable fainting spells.
I could end up dead just from banging my head on the ground. So, yeah, probably the shouting, I think. I'm not someone who shouts a lot, but I hate shouting, but I think it would be the shouting.
Okay, that reminds me, because this is another one. This is a follow-up to that, and I like your answer, by the way. I'm with you on this. And I want those in the comments answer the same thing. I have a follow-up question to this. If you had to have a close workmate that you work with on a daily basis, would you rather work with someone who constantly talks too loud or stares at you all the time?
Stares at me, because I could just cut that off in my brain. But if someone was too noisy, that would drive me insane. The staring, I could shut that off.
You shut that off. Okay. In the comments, let me know what
tap away.
I'm just envisioning that. Yeah, I think I could probably. I think I could deal with the staring better than the loud. Because
where do you get these questions from? They're incredible.
I have tons. I get them from tons of different places. I love questions. I love questions. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back. So folks, a lot of folks are here for the recruiting. So I want to make sure I stay on my topic here. Okay. So as far as recruiting goes, oh, by the way, Joanne says stares at me. She agrees with us. Rather have someone stare at her as well. Yeah. All right. So in terms of recruiting, what are some mistakes that you see organizations make in the UK that really prohibits their recruiting, even if you're trying to help them out, right? What are some things that they do, maybe mistakes, top two mistakes? This is something that may be actionable either for them or for us. Yes, clients. looking to hire?
The one that probably irritates me the most would be where you have had a first stage interview and then the person at second stage doesn't know the feedback from they haven't communicated properly between the first and second stage, or they are scoring the candidate differently. And I'm quite a big advocate of sort of scorecards, of clients having a scorecard by which each person rates that candidate in exactly the same way. Because I think the problem with recruitment is it's very much, it's a bit like looking at a website, it's very subjective.
Yes.
So, and people buy off people, and you might buy off that person, someone else might not. So, having some sort of consistency and a scorecard in the process. And then my second thing that clients don't do is I don't think they sell themselves very well sometimes. Interviewing is a two-way process.
Yes.
We spend a lot of time asking candidates a lot about themselves, and candidates ask the questions of the client, but I don't think they necessarily sell the opportunity well enough or sometimes truthfully enough.
Those are two amazing ones. I love that is a clip right there. Those are two great pieces of feedback, and I'm going to add to that. I love those two, Ruella. Okay, so one of those I'm going to add is when clients set up appointments and they cancel at the last second, and in those who do, let's say they do follow through with it, they didn't prepare for the interview. So they don't have prepared questions. They haven't looked at the resume yet. They don't have prepared questions. They don't know what they're dealing with. They just quickly, okay, do you have your resume with you? And it's just kind of off the cuff. And especially if more than one person is interviewing them, if they don't have any kind of process, how do they like going back to your scorecard thing? How do they compare the quality of the interviews? Because there's really no scorecard to begin with. They may not even have a scorecard. Do you supply your clients with a scorecard, or do they have to have their own?
No, but we should. I think it's a good idea something we should do. Again, this is something that's come up quite recently in my elite leaders group about having scorecards. And going back to the point you made, that's actually also a really good one where we don't have a lot of clients cancel at short notice or cancel at all. We're very fortunate. But we do perhaps have candidates who feel that the client was not prepared for that meeting.
Yeah, it sends a bad sign. Here's another one. This is another one that gets me. Is you send them the resume, they're qualified for the job, and they either take forever to respond to set up an interview, or they meet with them and do the interview, and then you hear crickets. There's like radio silence for long periods of time. And then by the time they do get back with you, the candidate's already moved on. They've already looked at other things and that sort of thing. So just a slow response. I think there's some reasons behind that, but do you guys experience that in the UK very often?
I mean, it may happen in other sectors, certainly in recruitment. Our clients, I really couldn't feel more fortunate at the way that they're always very quick to come back to us. So
I love that.
We're very lucky. We don't have that issue.
That is amazing.
We manage our clients quite closely.
Well, we certainly work with them, of course, and we know they're busy, right? We know that they're busy people, and work them as much as we can. But I think sometimes they just don't realize how much time has passed.
I think it's really important to respect the process, both from a client and candidate perspective. And I think if a client wasn't respecting our process, or a candidate wasn't, then we would not work with them, because whilst obviously we are charging high fees for our service, I think it's important for both parties to feel respected.
Yes.
And if that process is not, and to respect us as well, our time, the effort that goes behind all of that. Candidates sometimes spend hours preparing for themselves. So for me, if all parties are not respecting the process properly, it's going to fail. So we spend a lot of time, I think, educating both sides to make sure that we don't have those sorts of things happen.
I love that. And, especially with contingency orders, because you're working on your own dime, so to speak, you have to really be careful with clients who continue to work on their orders, because you're not getting paid. Because if you're submitting people and they're not responding and you end up losing that candidate, you don't get paid either. So I could definitely see that. I know with us, it's a little bit different in the sense that they do have what we call skin in the game. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but they feel like they're invested, And so they are more likely to move a little quicker, and we can give them feedback that, hey, look, we've got 3 candidates here in these particular positions, but they've been in your pipeline for over a week and they haven't received an interview slot yet. So is it something we can work? Oh yeah, okay, we'll work on that. So at least we can have those kind of conversations.
Sorry,
go ahead. Mm-hmm.
We've just bought an ATS system that can tell us whether a candidate has opened that CV or resume, looked at that resume. Do you have this is a new feature on a new ATS system that we're just in the process of moving to. Is that something that you have on the systems that you have in the US? You can see that kind of data?
I think that the technology is probably there. We currently don't use that because I know with us, the technology that the ultimate hiring manager is using is different from maybe what we're using. So I think it would be difficult for us to determine if they've actually opened it or not. So that's a good thought. I like that. I think that ultimately from our end, what's been the most effective is when we keep track of the dates, dates when they were submitted, dates when there was an interview, and so how long they're in the pipeline, those things, it's kind of hard to refute when you look back at the results over time. So let's go back to, oh, by the way, Joanne says she can't focus on her work if someone's too loud. I want to go back to, in terms of if you were to start fresh, start all over again as a recruiter, brand new, what's one of the first 3 things you would do to restart your business? Because or would you do it exactly the same?
No, not at all.
Okay.
This is so interesting, this question, because I've asked it of myself and going through the pandemic. I think, that initial, initially for us, I don't know if it was the same for your business, for any recruiters who are listening, or anyone who's listening, it was a huge shock, and I think we all didn't quite believe it was going to affect our businesses as much as it did. And there were probably 2 things that I would do, that we've done, that I would do if I was starting a business from scratch. Okay. 1, I would have a mentor or a business coach.
Okay, mentor, business coach. I like that.
Yeah. Number 2, I would really focus on the personal branding piece from day 1.
Focus on personal branding.
That would be really important. And 3 is I'd probably work a retained model from day 1.
Retained model. Okay. Now this is really good. Wow. We're gonna. This is almost like a part 2. We could spend, I think, an hour just on those 3 things you just said. Okay, so let's just work with the last one for a second, and then I want to go to the first one. Why is it that you would start? Because you've been doing contingency most of your career. Why would you start with retain?
Because it's money up front. The client's more committed. There's more investment from them, more investment from us. It's more focused, and I think when you're approaching a candidate, you have a higher chance of attracting a candidate if they feel that a client has retained you to find that role. It's a real job that they've invested in, and I think it makes it easier to attract good candidates.
That is so true. Okay, by the way, Heidi. Hey, Heidi, she's a recruiter here in the States. Glad you came on, Heidi. She has a question. Can Ruella share the name of the CRM that she uses?
We've just moving to something called Job Adder. It's Australian. And that's the one we're moving to. The other good thing I'm going to quickly highlight to Heidi is what I love about it particularly. It has some video functionality in it. So we're going to be using video for the first time, which also can help on the retained piece, I think. And the second reason I love it is I can put an app on my phone, and after I've just interviewed a candidate or I've just taken a brief from a client, I can dictate straight into the app, and it goes straight into the CRM, because I hate typing.
I'm with you on that. Okay, well, that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that high value information. That was really good. So appreciate that. And that was a great question, Heidi. Thank you for that wonderful question. And please keep them coming in. We only have just a couple more minutes left, so please put in a question if you have one before we wrap up here. So, and by the way, video is my jam. I love videos. Now, when I say my jam, I just mean it's something I really like. All right, so
I still hate video.
But you do good at it.
I do live shows and I hate video.
But videos really help to show candidates things about the job, such as what their potential hiring manager is like, what their potential workmates are like, what the work environment is like, and if we're talking about the recruiter, what the recruiter is like, right? Because they can see if they want to work with that person or not. So it's really, and you can hide behind text, but once you're in front of the camera, it's kind of hard to hide, right? You're right there. So I think people are consuming it more and more. We use it pretty much on all of our jobs now. So if we get a new,
fantastic.
if we get a new job from a client, we're trying to figure out how quickly we can create videos. Just for this one search, the one big search we're working on right now, we've created, I think, like 40 videos, and over 20 of them we have actively that we're pushing out in recruitment campaigns through Google, YouTube, LinkedIn. And through Google, YouTube, and LinkedIn, you're pretty much hitting like over 90% of the US market. I mean, all ages, genders and everything. So in videos, how you get to them. And some of the video campaigns, they have an 84% open ratio. So So if I show this to, let's say, 100,000 people, that means out of 100,000 people, over 84,000 of them will start watching the video. It's just amazing stats. So we're loving it, and obviously it helps people filter people out, because they'll see within a few seconds whether they're interested or not, and if they're not interested, they're not going to keep watching the video, right? But if they do watch more than 30 seconds, it shows that they have somewhat of an interest in what you're presenting to them. So we love it. All right, so I want to go back quickly before we wrap up here. You said find a mentor first was the first thing you would do. Why was that your first one?
I've never had a mentor in recruitment, and now I have two people, and I just, mindset's such an important piece in recruitment, and I am somebody who fantastically, thank goodness, I see the world through rose-tinted glasses, even when things are going against me, and I'm very positive. I bounce back very quickly, but I can see sometimes when you are having difficult days, you can't see the wood for the trees, you have no bandwidth left, you have decision fatigue, to go to someone else and just literally go to someone who really understands what you're going through. They've been there, they've trodden that path, they've had a business, and they've encountered all of the roller coaster of stuff that you've gone through.
Yes.
It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. And I should have done that 25, 30 years ago when I first started in recruitment.
That is fantastic advice. It reminds me of a quote that I quote a lot from Les Brown. He says it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. Because
perfect quote.
Yeah, it's just so much easier when you have someone who has a different perspective. They can see something that's just difficult for us to see, but they can see it in like that.
I'm going to find that quote, Rollis, and put it on my LinkedIn page this week.
Yeah. I tell you, I love that quote. So we have, let's see, Dr. Murta. Oh, welcome. Murta, she's coming in from Argentina.
Wow,
excellent.
Amazing.
I see. I don't know. I'm trying to think is it bienvenidos? Is that right? Bienvenidos.
Unfortunately, I can't see all the comments, even though I've got my glasses on.
I think welcome.
My COVID fringe that needs cutting, which I keep flicking, it's preventing me from seeing everything today.
I think bienvenidos is welcome in Spanish. I believe that's what it is. Well, welcome at any rate, Dr. Let's see, Dambra Mirta. Very much appreciate you coming in. Well, this was a great session today. And so you said find a mentor. Remember that. Find a mentor was first. And then what was the second one again? I forgot.
It's the personal branding.
That's right. Personal branding. Yes. Personal branding. And then the third one is the
retain model.
The retain model. Yeah. So for us, it's interesting. You said about finding a mentor. We just started a coaching program for all the stuff we do with our video creation and recruitment advertising and recruitment services. We started a coaching program, and we're kind of unveiling that tomorrow afternoon at 3:30. We're doing a session. And,
that's fantastic. I mean, we are about to send out a campaign ourselves to help any recruiter that wants some help with their personal branding.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So we are about to do some free sessions ourselves because I'm so passionate about it
I
now.
love it.
But I think it's something that, we should all be, helping each other.
Yes.
COVID's all about collaboration and helping
Yes.
each other through these difficult times. And if that's going to help someone get a job, or it's going to help somebody in their career
Yes.
be better, then I think I'm really all for giving out advice. So if that's what you're doing, Rollis, that's just incredible.
Well, there's another saying I like that. I remember the first person who told me this was Eric Stanley, but I don't know who originally quoted it. But in fact, it's very difficult to find who came up with this quote. But it's a rising tide lifts all boats. Now, it's been used in a lot of different circumstances, but I like to use it in the circumstance of if we are willing to help other folks in our community, it makes it better for everyone, and including us. So that's why I like to do things that help to uplift others, because in the end, it does actually help me out too. Some people feel like life is almost like a pie, and if I give you a piece of the pie, that's less pie than I'm going to have, which is kind of almost like the view of scarcity, right? But I believe in kind of more of the
I agree
abundance.
with you.
We can all help each other grow. So I love that. Well, listen, thanks for everyone joining us today. Ruella, I know it's late where you are, so thank you for being with me for this entire hour. I learned a lot. I think my audience learned a lot, and we're going to do some clips off of this that you're going to see later, and you'll be able, if you want to put it on your profile. We're going to certainly put it on ours.
Yeah, please send me through a copy of the video. I'd love. It's been such an interesting conversation. I've enjoyed every minute of it. So thank you.
Me too. Okay, so one last thing really quick, and those in the comments, I want you to put this, I'm going to look at it later, is what are you grateful for today? What are you grateful for today, Ruella?
Wow, that I still have a business.
Ah, yes.
My health.
Oh, thank you.
My family.
Thank you.
Particularly my children. I have 2 teenage children, and they are my why.
Oh, I love it. Okay, this is for you for such an amazing session today. Thank you so much. You are a rock star today.
Thank you.
Okay, well, listen, folks, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll have another show for you. Have a great rest of the day. Let's say bye to everyone. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, stay on for 1 second.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I just want to make sure that I don't cut us off while we're talking. Okay, I think we're good. Are we good, Jonathan? I'll double check that. And let us know while those who are still here, let us know what resonated with you today. Go ahead.
Oh, you're good now.
Awesome. Thank you.